What's up, 12s? It's Brandon Michael here, the owner of the Hotcast. And guys, I'm super excited about today's topic because it kind of, brings up the future. And honestly, we've got to start concerning about the future now rather than later because it's coming up real soon. And no, it's not about Russell Wilson. It's not about Bobby Wagner. It's not about the rest of the players. It's actually about our coach, Pete Carroll. If you guys don't know, Pete Carroll's contract ends in 2021. And for a guy who's coached for many years, the oldest coach in the NFL, and honestly has already contemplated retirement in the past, the end is closer than we think, guys, for Pete Carroll. And honestly, he might have a couple years left before it's all said and done. So, what does that mean for Seattle? Well, Seattle obviously is going to have to hire someone else as the head coach once Pete Carroll retires. Is it going to be Brian Schottenheimer who kind of steps up? Or is it going to be Ken Norton? Or who is it going to be? Nobody really knows, right? But FanSided, the Seahawks FanSided actually posted an article that said the top 5 candidates for the Seattle Seahawks coaching coaching position, which was very interesting. I just want to go through it real quick because I have a very strong opinion about this, and I almost strongly disagree with the people they put on there. So let's just go ahead and get started, guys. First and foremost, they put the 5 people. The honorable mentions were Dan Quinn and Greg Roman. Now, Dan Quinn obviously was our defensive coordinator for the Seahawks when we went to the Super Bowl. Now he's the current coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Greg Roman, is the current offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, who obviously has one of the best offenses in the NFL. I like that pick, and I'll tell you guys why later. But the actual 5 they put down were Dwayne Walker, I think, the defensive back coach for the Cleveland Browns. Then Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. Gus Bradley, former head coach, used to be the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks back in, I think, 2009 to 2012. And then they also had Chris Richard, our former defensive backs coach and former defensive coordinator for both the Cowboys and the Seahawks. And then finally, they put Robert Saleh, the current defensive defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, used to also coach in Seattle. Yeah, those are 5 options right there that I disagree with 4 of them. And let me tell you why. I don't have anything bad to say about Dwayne Walker, but I don't really know too much about him. Like, defensive backs coach for Cleveland, like, apparently I was reading it, he's an underrated guy, blah, 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 but forget that. Like, he's not an offensive guy. I've always said I want an offensive-minded guy. Eric Bieniemy is, like, my dream. He's taken the Kansas City Chiefs offense to levels above what they were years ago, but at the same time, you got to think about it. They do have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, so how much is it the scheme? We don't really know. And how much is it Andy Reid? We don't really know either with Eric Bieniemy. All we know is that Bieniemy has had extreme, success with the team he's had so far. But after that, it gets really murky because we've got Gus Bradley, Robert Saleh, and then Chris Richard. Now, let me tell you why I don't like that. When Pete Carroll retires, I've said this before, I'm tired of Pete Carroll's scheme. I'm sick and tired of it. I don't want anything to do with Pete Carroll's scheme. I don't want his mentality. I'm done with it. After he's gone, I want to turn into an offensive team. That we have the quarterback for our offensive team. We've got the receivers for our offensive team. We're not a defensive team anymore. And I feel like Pete Carroll's scheme doesn't work anymore. The 4-3 base defense, it just doesn't work anymore. So, what does FanSided want to do? They want to go ahead and hire 3 guys who literally coach exactly like Pete Carroll. Gus Bradley was under Pete Carroll. Chris Richard was under Pete Carroll. And Robert Saleh is under Pete Carroll. Literally all 3 guys will bring back, and they'll be replicas of Pete Carroll back in our team. Dog. Why, once Pete Carroll leaves, we just want another Pete Carroll? I understand Pete Carroll was good, but first of all, those 3 guys aren't going to be Pete Carroll level. Like, Pete Carroll took us to a Super Bowl, one of the best Seahawks coach of all time. We're not bringing in Gus Bradley and thinking, oh, Gus Bradley is going to be like one of the best Seahawks coaches of all time. No. Chris Richard, and the closest we're going to get is Robert Saleh. And the only reason why I'm okay with Robert Saleh is because he's worked with Kyle Shanahan, and I really do like Kyle Shanahan's offense, so if he could bring a little bit of that flavor back to this offense, then I'll be okay with that. But I don't want a defensive coach. Dan Quinn, we're going to bring in Dan Quinn for a head coach? Dog, we're literally, they named 4 defensive coaches for the Seahawks. They literally just want to bring in another Pete Carroll back to this team. And I understand, yes, I love Pete Carroll, but I don't want, when Pete Carroll retires, I want Russell Wilson to actually have a chance to have an offensive-minded coach that's going to come in there, not forget about the run game, but truly surround that offensive line, surround that offensive weapons around Russell Wilson. It's not like that now. It's surrounded by a running game, and it frustrates me so much, but that's Pete Carroll's mindset. We bring in these other guys, obviously guys like Saleh, they're not 100% influenced by Pete Carroll, but he brought that Pete Carroll style defense to San Francisco, and that's why they've done good. But you got to also realize that San Francisco has nasty players. Like, we don't got that talent like that. So we don't really know if Saleh brings it back over, all of a sudden it's working again. I don't think so. I don't think it works like that. But Saleh I'd be okay with. I like Robert Saleh a lot. I've always liked Robert Saleh, and I also do like Eric Bieniemy. Those are like the two guys I'm okay with. I don't want Richard back. I don't want Gus Bradley back. Yeah, Dan Quinn as a D coordinator, I'll take Dan Quinn, but that's not happening. If he's coming back, it's going to be a head coaching position. If he gets fired from Atlanta and Pete Carroll retires, maybe he comes back to Seattle. I do not want that to happen either. I want an offensive-minded coach, like Eric Bieniemy. You look at some of these offensive minds, like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, these guys that are like put into these head coaching positions, and they're just wizards. They go out there and they just know how to pick apart a defense. I need that. I want that in our team. Pete Carroll doesn't know how to pick apart a defense like that anymore. It's literally Russell Wilson who does all the work on our offense. I'm not saying we don't got talent. I'm not saying DK Metcalf's not talented. I'm not saying Tyler Lockett's not talented. I'm not saying Chris Carson. But at the end of the day, if we don't have Russell Wilson, we're not a playoff team. And let me tell you what, Pete Carroll is, to me, a huge part of that. And I love Pete, like I said, but Pete Carroll's offense is not good. And it's not Brian Schottenheimer's fault, because Schottenheimer's just calling the shots for Pete Carroll's playbook. That's all it is. Schotty brought a couple of plays with him when he got hired as offensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, it's Pete Carroll's offense that he's running. I don't want another defensive coach, and especially a defensive coach that with Pete Carroll's under Pete Carroll. Like, literally all 4 out of the 6 guys, Saleh, Bradley, Richard, Quinn, all Seahawks coaches. Why can't we press the refresh button once Pete Carroll's gone, get a young, smart, young-minded coach? And I understand, I 100% understand. You're probably saying, Brandon, well, who else is out there? I don't know. But before we sit around and commit to Saleh or someone, like I said, I like Saleh. Saleh I'd be okay with, but do I see us winning a Super Bowl, Saleh? Not exactly. Like, I do feel like Kyle Shanahan's pulling a lot of the strings in San Francisco, and Saleh's just kind of there to kind of form it together a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's Shanahan pulling the strings. Bieniemy, that also could be the case since he's with Andy Reid, but I do think Bieniemy has really learned to coach a great offense, especially with the players he's had to work with. And other guys like Bradley, he's been fired left and right, man. I don't want Gus Bradley back in Seattle. Chris Richard, dog, I don't want Chris Richard. I like Chris Richard. I love Chris Richard, but do I want him as a head coach? I mean, that's a push. That's a push. And same with Dan Quinn. I love Dan Quinn. I love Coach Quinn, but only as a D coordinator. I don't want to come in and have him as a head coach. I want a young guy who's going to bring a new mindset and is going to come in and bring some flair back to this team. Because I do feel like the Pete Carroll philosophy is starting to get old in these players. And I guarantee you, if we press a refresh button on Russell Wilson, right? Or not on Russell Wilson, but we bring a new coach that's going to surround it around Russell Wilson, Russell would want to stay and he will stay longer. I promise you. If we bring in another freaking Dan Quinn to this team, Russell Wilson's going to want to leave because he's getting sick and tired of Seattle. I guarantee you. He hasn't said anything, but the whole Pete Carroll mindset where it's not about Russell, it's about a team, blah, blah, blah. Russell's going to get sick of that. If you bring in an offensive coach, if we got a Shanahan in here, Russell's going to want to stay, especially when you've got just a genius as an offensive-minded coach. Russell's going to want to stay. But if we constantly just put in these old Seahawks defensive coaches, they're going to come in and replace Pete and have that defensive mindset, Russell's going to leave eventually. And well, I think Russell will eventually leave anyway, but I'm saying he'll leave sooner rather than later. So that's my opinion, guys. I don't want to bring in an old Seahawks coach. Saleh, I'm cool with. That's about it. And I love Eric Bieniemy, but Bieniemy is never happening. Bieniemy is not leaving Kansas City. He's just not. And if he's not, by the time, he won't come to Seattle. I don't see it. But I'd love to. I mean, I'd love for it to happen, but it is what it is. Like I said, guys, Pete Carroll's contract's ending in 2021, so it's coming sooner rather than later, guys. Pete Carroll, we don't know how much he's got left in him. So that's just my opinion. If you guys agree, go ahead and tell me. If you do want to sign back an old Seahawks defensive coach, let me know in the comments below. If you agree with me and say we need to press the restart button, sign a young offensive guy, and kind of rebuild and rebrand the Seattle Seahawks, go ahead and smash that like button. Guys, stay safe. Go Seahawks. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I'll see you guys soon, and go Hawks.